And a gracious good morning to all of you who have joined us today for our virtual service together. My name is Denise Rhymes, and I have the honor and privilege of serving as president of the Board of Trustees of this magnificent congregation. It's been a week, hasn't it? It's as if 2021 says to 2020, here, hold my beer, got something to show you. But we're glad that you've joined us to put that aside for an hour this morning for a restorative and introspective time that will help us gather our thoughts. We do have a long history of fighting oppression and fighting those elements that attempt to take away our democracy, and we will continue to do that as far into the future as history will allow. We're very grateful that you joined today to be with us and to think back on the activities, not only of this week, but of our long history of upholding democracy and fighting oppression. We have a special service today, and if it inspires you to perhaps get more involved with our congregation, or if you'd just like to learn more about Unitarian Universalism, please don't hesitate to contact our membership committee at membership@richmonduu.org. We also have a coffee hour about 5 minutes following this service. And if you'd like to carry on some discussions and go a little bit deeper after today's service, we encourage you to join us for that. The information will be on the screen at the end of the service. Welcome to this time of respite and prayer. Thank you for being with us.
They told me I needed to go live and turn all that on, and I forgot. My apologies to the crack tech crew. Folks, today we are doing a service live. We didn't originally plan for this. Today was to be the Sunday which we unrolled and premiered our theme for the next 4 months, which is justice for the earth. But circumstances have overcome us, and so it's time for us to talk. And this is a live service, and if there are goof ups like me in the process, let the tech folks get to it. They'll solve it and have a workaround. And also, I wanted to thank the people who worked so diligently on the service we were supposed to have today. It will be on the 24th of January. So we thank them, and we will talk about Gaia and the earth. Oh, well, what a week. It was to be a week in which we would find out the situation in Georgia. After years of organizing to see whether we could get maximum voter registration and maximum voter participation, more people voted than in the presidential election. The outcome, a sterling testimony to democracy. And for the first time in a long time, we saw Democrats elected, but for the very first time, we saw a Black man elected from Georgia since the time of Reconstruction, and a Jewish man elected as well. And if we hadn't had more than 5 minutes to celebrate that, we expected to see our new president-elect, Joe Biden, be certified. And we all know what happened as a result. That's why we've gone live today. We are following our opening words now with the centering that we rely upon. We have Reverend Sherman, who's going to lead us in our chalice lighting.
Our chalice lighting this morning are words from James Luther Adams. When the enemies of freedom come to rescue us from the regnant social chaos, they will not be wearing brown shirts and hailing their Führer. They will come waving the flag and clutching the Bible, seemingly innocent symbols of American culture.
This is a quote from Dr. King. In a world facing the revolt of ragged and hungry masses of God's children, in a world torn between the tensions of East and West, of white and colored, individualists and collectivists, in a world whose culture and spiritual power lags so far behind her technological capacities that we each live on the verge of nuclear co-annihilation. In this world, nonviolence is no longer an option for intellectual analysis. It is an imperative for action. Let us have a time of meditation. Well, I know we would all rather have experienced the last month of this term quietly and hopefully as we placed our hope in our president-elect. So much is at stake. The pandemic, the economics, but we might have hoped that that was all that needed to be at stake. Certainly not our democracy as a whole. And yet, we saw a joyful election that proved the value of broad voter participation in Georgia, only to be followed within hours of an attempt to undo the peaceful process of free and fair elections. Now, I know that's not the language other people are using to describe what they were doing there. I recognize that. I recognize that there are people who are trying to say it wasn't them, it was Antifa. Well, whatever it is that they're trying to say, I want to say this, that on Wednesday, we witnessed a significant event. We can't put our heads down and just muddle through. There have been multiple events that have led to this place. It might interest you to know, for example, that the very websites that planned the events of Charlottesville, the white supremacist websites, the ones that chanted, "Jews will not replace us." Well, they were the sites that talked about storming the Capitol. We have found, of course, we're not all on those sites, but we have found out that indeed those actions were planned well in advance. And interestingly enough, by law, we have isolated the FBI and others from reading those sites, following those sites. What does that mean? Well, the Southern Poverty Law Organization says that they have identified 800 plus groups that are following this kind of Trumpism, that the conservatism of evangelicals will come at us with an American flag and a Bible, as was forecast. That puts us to sleep a little bit. And this sermon is my response to that. I want to thank 14 people who yesterday got on a call to help me examine that. Other people who sent me things via email and pointed out lots of things. Boy, I've read a lot in the past 4 days. And here's what I want you to know. I think somebody will post for us in the chat that some of the things that were recommended that we read, I posted that previously and folks in the chat will post it up. Some of the things that were recommended by our membership to read and think about. First of all, a couple of people mentioned Tim Snyder's 20 Lessons from the 20th Century. It is about totalitarianism. And it's a book that's very small, very thin. Get it on Kindle or whatever. It is definitely worth looking at the 20 totalitarian markers that should be discussed. Discussed naturally enough was the US Constitution. When was the last time you read the Constitution? I'm recommending Dr. King's Strength to Love book, a collection of his sermons. And I think this is the most influential of Dr. King's books. By the way, published by Beacon Press, your publishing house. And to go to the website and listen to YouTubes from Professor Heather Cox Richardson. Both Richardson and Snyder are out of Yale and bring something to us that I think we want to follow. So my friends, we have muddled through a time longer than 4 years. This is a long time. It's a long time since Newt Gingrich took the Congress hostage. It's a long time since Timothy McVeigh killed hundreds of people in Oklahoma City. It's a long time even from recent things like Charlottesville, where there was no doubt whatsoever that there was an armed group of people ready to attack the fundamental democracy of our country. Just ask our people who were there. Some 60 of our people were witnesses to that up front. And it's very plain that the big lies that have been spread have been embraced by many. So separated are our communication platforms these days. As a result, we know and recall what Hitler said, that people are inclined to believe lies, but in particular, they'll believe the biggest lie because it gives them an excuse to behave in any way they deem appropriate. That is true no matter where you are on the political spectrum. The events in Portland are very much violent events. People throwing Molotov cocktails, people shooting others. And on this end, we know 5 people died, only 5 people died. People arrived with Ziplocs and ropes and declared that they were seeking control to avoid the peaceful transfer of power. This is not bad behavior. This is sedition and treason. And it gets to sedition and treason by having the average citizen go to sleep. Why does the citizen go to sleep? Well, there's some good reasons. First of all, we become the media we use. So, for example, when we hear strident statements from our cousin or our high school friend about attacking and using violence and the justification of those things, in the same place, we have cute kitten videos and birthday wishes flowing back and forth. We go to sleep. We block people. We don't listen to them anymore. We don't monitor them. We don't even attempt to talk to them because the shouting and the behavior is so impolite. So we let them set the agenda of how impolite things will be, which ultimately turns towards terror, domination, and violence. So when violence shows up, we have to ask ourselves how we turned ourselves away from it or numbed ourselves out by blocking our cousin Horatio. Whew. We can see these effects. So we have to say, what will happen if we don't hold people accountable and confront these lies deeply, powerfully? That's a fact. We don't want to join the militarization. We don't want to join them in violence. We don't want to tear down the government. We actually want to talk. But one of the challenges we have right now is we've let this get so far, it's hard to find people who want to talk with us. Hopefully, some people woke up and were scared by what they saw and will work with us to build new bridges. But notice, not in the people's house, not even in the Senate, were people clear on their purpose. They were still looking to manipulate the truth. Now, I want to confront another fallacy that belongs to people like us. It is the fallacy that says, this is not us. We're better than this. Friends, this is a very, very dangerous lie. The fact of America is that from the beginning, we practiced a kind of domination that often led to violence, to the theft of Native people's lands, to the oppression of white servants, and to the enslavement of people for hundreds of years. There were wars and disputes. There were rebellions. There were lynchings. There were all manner of violence. And to say we're better than this belies the fact that we have not yet in our consciousness emerged from our history. Particularly, we can see that among those who attacked the Capitol, they have a dress code, you know, it's tactical. It's camouflage and tactical. And you need to look like you know what you're doing, even though most of them are pathetic militarists. They do not understand either honor nor duty. Yet they want to look cool. They want to look like they know what they're doing. They want to bring their long arms. Now, in DC, they knew they couldn't do that without an arrest. But in this Commonwealth, last year, on the day that we celebrate Dr. King, more than 6,000 people went to the Capitol, most of them bearing long arms. And I stood within feet of them, watching their hysterics, watching their dismissing anyone who doesn't support the fullest measure of the Second Amendment. I have this penchant for talking to them because I want to engage the lie. We should all want to engage the lie, but there's a way in which we have to do it. When we deny our history, we're being soft-headed, we're being sentimental, we're being dismissive, and that encourages other people with other views. We must be hard-headed. Dr. King was the one who advised us to be just that, be hard-headed, be practical, be logical. I was delighted yesterday when I met with other congregants who said, we have to be honest and logical about this. This has been coming for a long time, and we keep hoping it won't happen. And we do too little to stop it from happening. Thank you all. I was so glad to hear that. That's soft-headedness. When we deny, when we don't take it seriously, and it's hard-headedness when we know it's logical and it's a natural progression that we have allowed. When the president says there were good and bad people there, well, he may be technically right, but there's no doubt about who provoked Charlottesville. No doubt. We must call groups into accountability. This is where we need to understand that we can still be soft-hearted, but have to be hard-headed. That's the combination we want. Hard-headed, soft-hearted. Not meaning that we forgive or don't hold people accountable, but that from a place of accountability, after we've held them accountable, we then begin to work to try to bring them back into the community of our society and our culture. This is not easy work, not at all. Dr. King thinks that in order to preserve the hard-headedness that's clear and sees what's happening, sedition, we're now at sedition, what will be next? Assassination? We're at a place where we have to be clear-headed and soft-hearted enough to care. And Dr. King thinks the practice that it needs to be engaged in, the way forward, the action that needs to happen is an intense and deep commitment to nonviolent practice. I know you didn't want to hear that because you know, you're all smart enough to know that a true and sincere nonviolent practice is not an easy thing. I know. I stood in Charlottesville as people came by with poles and shields and knocked people down, that I was standing with, locked arm in arm. I have been in the places where counter demonstrators come and encounter demonstrators and begin to pile up on them and to spit on them and to throw things at them. I've been in those places. I was in Phoenix where Antifa was in the face of the police and demonstrators were treated very badly by the sheriff's department. I mean, everyone was given over to the temptation of violence. And to be nonviolent in that moment, as I saw Annette Marquis demonstrate, as she willingly submitted herself to arrest, that is a special spiritual place that doesn't come easy and needs to be cultivated. Now, if we're talking about types of people, okay, in a Jungian analysis, you can probably understand that I am a warrior. I'm the kind of person, when I see something unjust or wrong, I want to spring to action. Now, the American model for what I should do is this. But what I need to do is this. I am learning to be a non-violent warrior. And I think the time has come that we take this seriously among us, because Dr. King pointed out that only through nonviolence can you hold the hard-headedness and the soft-heartedness that lead to beloved community. You can't get to beloved community through violence. You cannot get to beloved community by turning your eyes away and not seeing. You cannot get to beloved community by indulging everyone or by being mean to them so that they're alienated forever. You have to hold tight to hard-headedness and soft-heartedness and practice nonviolence in order that conversion of the heart of those who are opposing us becomes the inevitability. But it will happen after a lot of personal sacrifice and suffering. I'm sorry to say it, but that's the price we're at right now. Dr. King said this wonderful thing that I really love, and I'm going to work on with you. He said that Jesus gave us the goals, but Mahatma Gandhi gave us the tactics. I want to open that up a little bit. I want to say that the Hebrew prophets gave us the awareness. Jesus gave us the goals. Mahatma Gandhi gave us the tactics. And I think the Buddha gave us the method by which we can sustain ourselves in a period of time in which sacrifice will be called for. Unfortunately, we cannot be sunshine patriots by being angry and being opposing or even being militant. I want to have the word patriot mean something more than the pathetic sedition we saw on Wednesday. I want to be able to love my country in a way that will allow other people to be a part of that, and in our small ways in our communities to build the beloved community that supports it. But I have to say, to be honest with us all, that learning and practicing nonviolent witness in opposition to these people, and that means going places we don't necessarily think is smart to go to, but practicing a nonviolent commitment in our lives is necessary, because this isn't just about our country. Understand, they are there because they oppose Black Lives Matter. They are there because they cling to guns as a way of solving things. They are there because in fact, they don't want anyone from any other country to come here. They are there because they believe that they are losing out, that they don't have the same control and the hierarchy that they want, that they can no longer dominate everyone else. I pray that is true. I know politically it is becoming true, not fully yet, but we must, as a community, decide what will be our commitment going forward. And if it is to be what I think will deliver, in part, our beloved community, it must be non-violent. Do not turn away. Do not be muddle-headed. Do not be hard-hearted. And I know that's hard. We'll talk about that more someday. But be hard-headed, soft-hearted, and non-violent. But above all, do something. Blessed be Ashe, Amin, Amen.
Will you join me?
Reverend Sherwin, you're muted.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Live TV, folks. Join me now in a time of prayer. Spirit of life and love, God of many names, creator of all races and people, we gather here this morning in the spirit of prayer. The events of last Wednesday, the attempted overthrow of our democracy, the violence, destruction, mayhem, the loss of lives, was a stark reminder that this country have been, is, and will be a divided country, where despite our best efforts, we are not treated equal. Our inherent worth and dignity are not valued. And we have given many chances before this past week throughout our history to heal the wounds of racism and oppression, to end xenophobia and nativism, to quell the anti-democratic impulses that have beset our nations for many centuries. And it has held us back from realizing our inherent worth and dignity of all souls in the beloved community. Now, we have made some progress, but we have a mighty, mighty long way to go. We have so much work to do, and everyone has a role if we are to live fully our principles, our values, to achieve our highest aspiration, to be our better selves. So we have an opportunity this day to renew our commitment to work and to embrace it fully and thankfully. Oh, Holy One, we ask that you create in us a new mind and heart that would enable all of us to see our brothers, our sisters, our siblings in the faces of those divided by racial, ethnic, cultural, and political categories. Give us the strength to rid ourselves of racial stereotypes that oppress some of us while providing entitlements to others. Help us create a church, a nation, a community that embrace the hopes and fears of all our siblings who face oppression where we live, as well as those around the world. Heal the wounds of our nation, past and present, and pour on us the spirit of love and compassion to enable us to reverence each person and reach out to anyone in need, to value and appreciate those who differ from us, to share the resources of our nation, to give gifts, to receive the gifts of others by people from other cultures. Grant that we may always promote justice and acceptance that ensure peace, lasting peace and racial harmony. And grant us the courage to not only speak up when we see these injustices within our societies, our community, our churches, but to also speak up when we hear racist words spoken by a family member, a coworker, a friend, a neighbor. But also have the courage to listen even when the words are too hard to hear. So my siblings, this morning, we pray for compassion and understanding. We pray for resilience and determination and the fearlessness to take risks, to make mistakes, and to keep on trying, to keep on doing the hard work to make this a just, equitable, inclusive, loving, beloved community. Help us to remember that we are one world, we are one family. And the gratitude for the opportunity that we have been given and the promises of what we can achieve together as the human family. In the name of all that is holy, we say, Amen, Ashe, blessed be.
Thank you, Reverend Sherman. I needed that. The time has come to extinguish this chalice, but I beg of you, don't do nothing. Do something. They're going to be posting the lists of the sources that were suggested by our congregants yesterday in meeting. So if you can, go to chat and capture that. See what you can do in terms of your own deepening of understanding. If you're tempted to turn away and say, it'll work out, it'll be okay. It'll be okay maybe right now, but it won't be in 30 days or a week. There's already plans to attack different seats of government in the states. Take it seriously. The worst case is we over plan. Also, this week, if you would like to come on our Vespers, we'll be praying, thinking, meditating on this, 6 o'clock on Wednesday. And also, I invite anyone who wants to reach out and talk to me, send me an email, do whatever, connect with other people in the church, reach out, take care of your own family, make sure everybody's thinking about this. Because this is who we are in part. And for the better angels of our nature to preside, we cannot sit quietly by. I extinguish this chalice, but I'm intent to carry it, to think of you as I analyze what next opportunities there are. But the biggest thing, of course, is to act. Write every legislator. Think of how you can be present. Talk to that cousin you quieted a long time ago. And don't take your social media easily. It's a dangerous place. And if it's going to be a dangerous place, you might as well confront the truth. Blessed be to all of us. May our community become stronger by our commitment to non-violence. Let's get talking about non-violence. See you, some of you I know at the leaders meeting on Saturday. We'll be talking about it there.